Then I will call to order the Plan Commission meeting for September 17th at 7:16. First up is call to order. Oh, I'm sorry. Are we called to order? Do we need, I guess we don't need to do roll call again. First up then is approval of minutes. Thank you.
Did we see the minutes?
Oh,
I don't
ma'am, do you know?
I'll move approval of the minutes for the August 20th meeting.
Second.
All right. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right. Any opposed, nay? Then those are approved. Next up is public appearances for non-agenda items. I don't think I have anything for anything that's not on the agenda. So seeing nothing, we'll move along to agenda review. Anything anyone wants to change around at all? Nothing you need, all right? Then moving right along, we will go to A, the certified survey requests, CS 231219. Do we have anyone here for that?
I believe the applicant was unable to make it tonight, so I'll just provide an overview.
Okay, great.
Thank you. So I'm just going to bring up an image here.
It's good. Just under 100 people. Yeah.
So this is a certified survey map on the east side of town in the uptown neighborhood, and no new lots would be created. It's just a certified survey map that combines various outlots and then dedicates some of the land to the public for various purposes, including open space, stormwater conveyance, and parkland dedication. So you can see two different images up here on the screen. I'll just focus on this aerial image first, and there are 4 different outlots that are outlined in red. Up here is the Uptown Crossing neighborhood to the north and the fire station, and down here is the roundabout at East Sherrill and Lacey Road. Parts of this outlot here, where my cursor is, would be dedicated to the public for parkland purposes, and that would connect to the outlot to the north, which is already dedicated for parkland purposes. So it would just combine those and have that sort of consistent use. Around the outer ring, there are some areas that are delineated wetlands, so those would be dedicated to the public as well, but they wouldn't receive parkland credit for those wetlands. And then it's sort of the same story over here on the east side of the rail corridor. The smaller parcel up here would be dedicated for parkland purposes, and then the remainder is open space and sort of stormwater conveyance connecting down to East Sherrill Parkway in an outlot that's already, again, dedicated for those purposes. Staff recommendation is for approval with no conditions. This will go to the Parks Board for recommendation and then back to the council.
And one of the questions I had, Sonia, was that weird little piece that goes down to the, it looks like south. I don't think it's actually south. Well, maybe just south, actually. Can you speak to that a little bit?
Is that skinny piece here that
Yeah.
you're talking about? So all I know is that it's part of an existing platted outlot, part of the Nine Springs plat, and it has that existing sort of shape and configuration. My understanding is that in the SMART code plan, which is this adjacent image, there's a series of more linear parks and sort of connected green spaces in the neighborhood. So you can see here the green color on the SMART code plan incorporates that leg down to East Sherrill.
All right. Any questions at all from Plan Commission members? Yeah, Steven.
What about that other one in the, I would say, upper left corner? That little string, yep. What is that?
Not entirely sure. It might have something to do with, I don't want to speak incorrectly, but perhaps various easements related to stormwater conveyance. I know up in that area on the plat in the packet, there might be some more detail on the CSM, but I can't say for sure without looking at it.
Possibly wetlands as well. I'm guessing a little bit, though.
Yeah, I think there's like ponds
Yeah,
or
there's-
through most of where
Yeah,
that
it's
red
pretty
line
wet
is at
and
this point.
pondy and-
It's
Yeah.
a lot of storm.
And again, that's part of the existing platted outlot in that area.
Other questions at all? No?
I move for approval of CS 2312-19 with no conditions.
I'll second.
All right. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay? All right, that is approved. B, do we have, I'm not sure the applicant is, but is the applicant here to talk about B, the public hearing and consideration of the conditional use permit request for CU 2310-19. It's the, I think, oh yeah, Kim is here. Kim, if you'd like to, or if you want to come up and tell us a little bit about what's going on here, and then we'll have some chance for a public hearing.
Right here.
Yeah, that'd be great.
So the property of 93 Burrows has actually been an organic farm since the 1950s, I believe. And before that, it was a chicken farm. So what I'm applying for is actually consistent with its use over the many decades. It's a small, so I guess you would call it a micro farm, but there's 2 greenhouses, and there's a small orchard area, and then other areas that are in permanent beds. The previous owner had, or the one before that, I'm not sure, put in a bunch of concrete areas that delineates several parts of the land as growing areas. And so this request is to continue using the property in that way and to put up, to allow for more areas to cover for crops, like hoop houses.
All right, thank you. We'll have questions in just a second. I'm going to open the public hearing real quick. We have a couple other people that want to speak. So I'm going to open the public hearing. I have 2 people here. First is Joseph Mathers. I think you have to want to speak. You have some comments here, but I can just read your comments. Okay, I'll read your comments for you then. This usage has existed for at least 40 years at this location. As manager of adjacent property, we have found it a compatible usage. And I also have Carol Allport, I think. If you'd like to come up and speak, Carol, that'd be great. Yeah, if you're trying to come up, that'd be great.
I'm not sure how large of a building you're building. I guess I just want to know if there's going to be traffic changes on Breaker Drive, which is the one at the bottom of the L of the property, if that's going to change, because that street, it's just, there's no throughway there, and there's a lot of children on that street, and there's a fire hydrant right at the end of that street. So I just was curious, having concerns about traffic changes, any other parking that people would be doing, because there is gardens adjacent to it, which he just said, there's people that do park there sometimes. It gets kind of congested right on the corner. So that's all. I just want to know about those things.
So at this point, the increase in traffic or to use that area is not planned at this time. There, as part of the application, the number of employees would be 1 or 2, and so there's not going to be a large amount of, you wouldn't see an increase of traffic.
Is that where they'll be accessing your property, though, from Brager or from Burroughs?
From Burroughs.
Okay,
So there's no plan to change that right now?
Nope.
okay, okay. Thank you.
All right, thank you. I don't have anything else for the public hearing right now, unless anyone else wants to speak on this. So I'll close the public hearing, but now open up to questions, comments from Plan Commission on the conditional use permit. Oh, ma'am, did you have a question? Could you come up to the?
Yes, they didn't register.
You can fill it out after you speak. If you want to just come up to the mic and let us know who you are and where you live, that'd be great.
I'm Lee Goff. Goff. My husband and I live on the end of Geronimo Circle. Our neighbors, 2 lots, but up to that property, and we overlook the property from our rear deck. And some of the concerns we had was, is this going to be a commercial or a wholesale growing? I like the idea of no increased traffic because I'm concerned about, we have a very quiet cul-de-sac right now. If people have trouble finding it on Burroughs, I'm afraid that may increase our traffic, and we have a lot of small children on that street. The other concern I have is that we were totally unaware that that was already or had been used as agricultural property because we saw no activity along those lines other than the green gardens, which were public access, public use gardens off of Anderburg. So I guess my question is, along with the previous speaker, is traffic control, and basically is this going to be wholesale or retail?
All right, yeah. Would you like to comment on that, please?
It will continue to be used, it's in a very small fashion, so the harvest, I mean, to market is going on Burroughs Street to deliver to grocery stores and restaurants and things like that, but it doesn't impact anything on that part of the road.
Okay, so you're talking strictly farm to market as a wholesale supplier rather than having a retail setup where
Oh,
your
right,
customers would come to the...
No, no, no.
Okay, that makes a huge difference for
Yeah,
me.
that's,
Also, I guess, again, like I said, we were not even aware that the greenhouses were there and any activity was going on. So if it maintains that level of quiet in the neighborhood, I no longer have any issues with it.
yeah, the farm equipment that's used is what many people are unfamiliar with them because they're more popular in Europe, but they're increasing. This walk-behind tractors, BCS is the variety, and they are very quiet, efficient, small Honda engines, and they're actually quieter than our neighbors' lawnmowers. So,
I want one of those.
yeah, they're excellent. They're really, really excellent. And you get exercise because you walk behind them. So those are used to, that's the largest thing used to till the land.
So you'll be having tillable acreage, using the term from my farm girl years, plus the greenhouse. Are you planning on having any livestock? Because we
No.
already have some chicken farms in the neighborhood,
No.
and we're not happy about that.
No plans for any livestock.
Oh, good, thank you. That's all the questions I had.
All right, thank you. All right, anyone else have any questions from the public? Thank you for turning that in. All right, so I will officially close the public hearing, and now if people have additional comments or questions up here from the planning commission, that'd be great. I mean, I think what I'm hearing is that it's really essentially what you've been using the property for. You're gonna have another greenhouse to grow a little bit more, but it's still the same low impact and noise, and you're not selling anything out of here. It's really just
No.
kind of continuing to use it, very similar to how it's been used for a long, long time.
Correct.
Anything else? No? Someone want to make a motion then?
Make a motion to approve CU 231019 with the two conditions as stated by staff.
Second.
All right, all in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed, nay? All right, that is approved. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, next up is C, the public hearing and consideration of conditional use permit request for Bill Camperlino. And okay, you're here to speak to that. Great.
Chris Adams, I'm the surveyor for Bill. He's out of state, so he wasn't able to be here. We had a certified survey map that we did to create a new lot where we split his existing parcel. And because of the strange configuration of the home, the one line to the south there is considered a rear lot line. So we kind of ran into a snag late in the game. And city staff helped us realize that a conditional use permit would allow that, because that corner that's tight, the 29.7, is an addition, a four-season type addition. And in the a conditional use permit allows that to have a reduced setback from 35 all the way down to 25, which would allow that certified survey map line to be created the way we created it. So the CSM was approved by you guys a few weeks ago, and the conditional use permit was a condition of that approval that we get this approved through you as well, so.
Yeah, we saw this last month, I think it was. Okay. Staff report?
Applicant summarized it well, so I won't add anything further. The staff recommendation is for approval with 2 conditions. One is the standard condition, and number 2 is really just a finding of fact establishing for the record that we're allowing a setback of 29.7 feet.
All right. Yes, I'll close the public hearing. I don't have anything from the public on this one. And so go into consideration and questions and comments on this. Anyone?
I'll move approval of conditional
Did
use.
you have, Rich, you have a
I'm
question?
just curious,
Yeah.
so this shed or this porch is not gonna have any tempered air, it's not gonna be living, it's gonna be
Tempered air?
heated?
Well, as far as I understand, it's 4 seasons, so it's like part
So
of
they
home
can-
in
so
essence,
It
yeah.
could be a bedroom then, right?
I think might be part of the kitchen, I think is what it is. So,
Yeah, I think it's right off the kitchen.
Yeah.
It's essentially part of
Yeah.
the kitchen. It's already there.
so,
Any further questions? This is my neighbor. Doesn't affect me though. Oh, I'll see it if someone builds a house there, but, all right, Ed, do you want to do a motion?
Yeah, move approval of conditional use 2311-19 with the
Second.
2 conditions noted.
Second that.
All right, same by Zach. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay? All right, that's approved. Thank you.
thanks.
Moving along to D, the public hearing and consideration of the conditional use permit request for PlayCon. So we have, I believe, Chris and Mike here. So if you'd like to come up and speak to this, that'd be great.
I'm Mike Riscard from Playcon, and we're looking at adding an additional silo for plastic storage.
All right. Then I don't have anything else from the public, so I want to make sure there's no public comments. So I'll close the public hearing component of this. Staff report?
There are 2 items on the agenda, D and E, they're both related. One, we have to approve a conditional use to allow this, and then we have to do the architectural design review to approve the construction of them. So the issue is simply that the height of structures in this zoning district is limited to 42 feet in height, and that may be exceeded through conditional use permits. So they're proposing to go to 60 feet in height. It is consistent with existing silos on the property already, so they're just planning to mirror those exact sort of structures. And then maybe the applicant correct me if this is an incorrect statement, but the purpose of the silos is to store plastic resin pellets that will be used for the business.
Correct.
Okay, great. So then staff recommendation is for approval of the conditional use permit to exceed up to 60 feet in height, and then architectural design review approval with 3 conditions. One, just make sure you get your erosion control stormwater management permit if land disturbance exceeds 4,000 square feet. And then just for the record, paint the silos white to match the existing. I know that was part of the plans.
And if I remember right, there's 4 right now, and so you just want to add 2 more that look just like that?
Correct.
Okay. Other questions at all? Steven?
Are they going just adjacent to the existing ones or in a different location?
It'll start a second row in front of the current 4.
Got it.
You don't even see them.
Okay.
Other questions at all? Rich?
No.
Oh, okay. Ed?
I'm just curious, is this the kind of material that would be brought in by rail if there was still rail to this area?
It is still brought in by rail and then shipped to this location.
Oh, okay, so the rail is still running that far? And
Yes.
So that is how the resin's brought in?
Yep.
Okay. Then it just gets blown up into the silos, the rail cars?
Yeah, the rail cars are in Madison, and they goes from truck to the location here where then the trucks blow it into the silos.
Oh, right. That was my question, is if the rail still extended out, would you use it?
No, there's no rail anymore.
Yeah, no rail anymore, okay.
Other questions at all? Seeing none, if someone wants to make a motion for D, that'd be
I'll
great.
move approval of CU 2314-19 with the 2 staff conditions.
Second.
All right, all in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed, nay? All right, that's approved. And then same, the ADR, the design review of this project as well. I don't think there's anything further you want to add, but you're welcome to. All right, any further questions up here?
I feel like is this, can you view this? Did you take that little side road? Yeah. It's right there, right?
Yes.
Since I live there, and that's my hot spot to get out of there, I feel like I know Playcon better than I ever have before. So I've taken that road so much. But yeah, I know right where I know right where you're talking about. Okay.
Any other questions or comments? Someone want to do a motion on this one?
I'll make a motion to approve ADR 6906 McKee with 3 conditions as stated by staff.
Second.
All right, all in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed, nay? All right, thank you, guys.
Thank you.
All right, moving along to F. This is a sign waiver for Verona Road at 5380 King James Way. It looks like we do have some, yeah, Dale's here, great. Come on up, let us know what you got going on here. We can get your forms after if you want, or you can give them to us now, that'd be great.
Hey, Ed.
Hey, Andy, how are you?
Good, you?
Good. Long time.
Not that long, a couple of years.
Couple of years, I guess, yeah.
Yeah.
Sure.
How's Kathy?
She just had foot surgery on her other foot, so she's all handicapped.
Oh, no.
Getting her on a little wheel cart.
Oh, sorry to hear that.
It's okay.
All right, we have Dale and Andy here speaking about this one, so let us know what you got going on here.
Well, obviously, the Verona Road expansion did a tremendous amount of visibility damage to the AMS building, and I'm trying to keep some tenants in there happy, so I've offered to put up a sign. We didn't get paid for the other sign. We didn't own that. Gary Waldhart owned that from AMS, so DOT paid him for that sign. So we're trying to get some approval on here with that exception in your signage code. And I think we might be the first one that has applied for this based upon what we've learned. And as we study that, we think maybe, and first of all, I appreciate the staff putting in the work that they did, and you folks as well. It's long days for you folks. But if you we'll have some visuals there, where if you look at the sign, it's what would clear the parapet wall. So, and then we're going 14 above that dimension. If you took that concept and applied it to any other sign on any other business without the highway, the sign would be sitting on the ground. So if you can consider the top of that parapet wall the ground, because that's really what it is, even though the pole's 40-some feet tall, that's just to get us out of that hole. So we have pictures on the front of that of signs that are above the ground to clear traffic and clear semis and clear cars and that sort of thing. Envision all those signs being set right on the ground, and that's what this current exception that you folks put together creates. And so I think the staff did what the exception said, but I don't think the exception got all that thought through, because that is what you wind up with. And look at all the signs on poles, and most of those signs, I believe, are 25 feet high probably. That was probably the previous ordinance. And our proposal is going to be 2 feet shorter than what that concept would be. That concept applied to our application would be 52, and we're at 50. So we're trying to recreate what other businesses have taken advantage of. And so that's kind of why we're here.
On the surface, 50 feet sounds like a lot, but 27 feet of that is just to get us out of the ditch. And that returns us to a normal sign, just like everyone else in the neighborhood. I know Lisa and Sonia put this together, and the wording says there's a waiver potentially available if we apply for it to clear the obstruction of the road grade or the parapet. That's what the letter says, and that's what they gave us as a recommendation. But we also read in this under C that the solution should be proportional to the obstruction, and under F, the wording is, the requested waiver should be not out of character with the surrounding area or uses, and allow above the retaining wall as such an obstruction that the use of the standard sign code provisions where the standard sign codes would not be effective. So that's what we kind of put together as a solution for this business, for the tenants. We want to be in character with the surrounding business. We want to be within the spirit of Fitchburg's code, saying 25 feet. And you can see the examples of what happens if you actually put a car or a truck in front of that it makes the sign completely ineffective. And when I drive by there, take a look at it, it's almost presented as a safety issue. And I'm in the inside lane going southbound. There's a truck on my right-hand side, and if I'm trying to look at the railing level or the parapet, you can't see what's over there. So it's most effective use for a driver is to be able to see where your target is, where the business is, and know where the off-ramp is. So part of that is why it makes more sense as a sign company to recommend this height. Like I said, 27 feet just to get out of the ditch and make the sign effective. So we're asking, I guess, today to provide the waiver for above the 25 feet as a pole goes because of the road change in the elevation, but also a application for a waiver from the wording just to clear the obstruction of the grade of the road.
All right. Sonia, you want to give staff report?
So I believe the applicant's correct that this is the first project brought forward to the Plan Commission under this waiver provided by the sign code, and I brought it up here on the screen just so that we can see and the public can see it on the screen, under the sign code 26-7 for the Verona Road Reconstruction Project, and explains that the Plan Commission may grant a waiver for various aspects of the sign if it meets these conditions, A through F, and it specifically says a detached sign exceeding 25 feet but no greater height than necessary to clear the retaining wall or grade obstruction. So that's the specific literal language that staff looked at when writing this recommendation, and it would result in the 41-foot height sign, which is how the staff recommendation is worded. The applicant's basically looking for another 9 feet. So that's where, as staff, I wasn't going to interpret the language differently or read it less than the literal way to read these words. The Plan Commission should consider if they're going to interpret that language differently to allow somewhere more than the 41 feet recommended by staff. Just consider the impact on other signs coming in and if you're going to grant the same for all of those signs. In addition, this information provided by the applicants tonight wasn't included in the packet, so I think that, thank you, provides a good visual for understanding the 41 feet versus the additional 9 feet that they're requesting.
Sonia, one question I have is, do you know how many other businesses have been impacted that could come in, I guess? They might not, but I would imagine they would.
Don't have a number, but what I can say here is this little row of businesses here, I think maybe is at one of the lower points. Just coming off of that off-ramp, this part of Verona Road is higher. Again, I haven't taken a close look at the full road reconstruction plans, but there's a handful down here in this area.
All right. Questions, comments?
As a salesperson, I've called on Mounds and Jung. I thought might be good candidates for the same loss of visibility because of the being put in a ditch.
Sure.
Neither one of them are pursuing anything right now.
Okay. Ed?
Yeah, so it looks like there's a couple of issues here, and one is where you measure from, whether it's from the ramp or from the road. And I would think that, I mean, the road is really where the traffic is. I think that it should be the road. And to me, that would seem a reasonable interpretation. It could go either way, whether it's the ramp or the road, but, you know, I think it should be the road. With regard to the other issue, as to clearing the obstruction, the problem you have, and I guess I agree, I don't think this ordinance, I don't think we really entirely thought through what that's going to look like, because if you do that, you're going to have signs that are right at the level as you drive down that are just going to kind of look like billboards and billboard off anything else. I mean, I don't think we want that. I mean, I think we want what you're proposing to work, but I don't think it does under the language that we put together. I don't know how we reinterpret it. I actually think the ordinance should be amended.
Okay.
But those are my thoughts.
All right. Others? What are people thinking?
What are the plans
Lane,
with
go
where
ahead.
the old plumbing building used to be?
Well, right now, the land is for sale. So I don't know what's gonna go on there.
Where I was heading with that is there a way to maybe put a sign there in the, cause I get it, right? When you came out of the car wash the other day, I was like, it's just this big wall. You know, the automatic side of the car wash is like
Yeah.
round wall, turn left, good Lord. Could there be something maybe put at that corner that would direct people to those businesses to help, especially fit?
You know,
and
it's
ease?
owned by other people is the problem.
Is there any, like an easement kind of piece that the city owns of
What I
that,
was-
or a corner, a piece of the corner or section?
I don't know how to comment on that. I don't know if that's practical, but what I was trying to do is get them back to where they were before the road came through, which was this pylon sign at 25 feet that got visibility to both lanes. I mean, that's what, obviously, AMS was majorly impacted by that because they had the frontage on the road. So we were trying to recreate that environment, which we were damaged on when the road went through.
Rich?
Thanks.
Yeah, I agree. The only people that can see the sign, if it was low, would be those that are exiting. So if you're on the, going through or going over PD, you wouldn't see this. I like the fact this sign is going to represent 3 businesses, right?
Correct.
So I agree with Ed. I didn't want to, I was worried about having, you know, like multiple billboards out there. But this looks like it should be well done and would work well. I think the only other ones that I can think of would be mounds that are on that strip. And I guess that's it. But, so I'm for it.
Steven?
So I think the key, though, is what Ed said. How do we change the ordinance or the, what's here? Because if there's more coming, the next one is 15 feet, the next one's 20 feet above. I mean, because once we go past the absolute law or language that we have here, I agree. Not saying that this isn't the right way to go. I want to make sure that we're not backing ourselves into a corner by agreeing to this, and what does that mean to make sure that we're not stuck in the same position?
Can I make a comment on that? Since we sell signs all through Wisconsin and the UP and other places, many towns have just redefined what the grade is as the road elevation. And then within the spirit of what Fitchburg's always had, it's no longer bigger than 25 feet above the grade, if that's what Fitchburg goes with. So somehow, that's what we typically see with other towns when the same situation from road changes occurs.
Any comments to that?
Sounds like it might be easiest if the Plan Commission is interested in tabling the application and bringing it back concurrently with an ordinance amendment to clarify grade at the next meeting.
Is that easier than providing a waiver and then doing that?
I think that'd be up to the Plan Commission if they want to go in that direction. Again, I just, reading the literal interpretation, when I'm looking at this part, no greater height than that necessary to clear the retaining wall, makes me believe that the intent was just to clear the minimum amount of the wall, and that can't really be interpreted differently. So I'm not sure the ordinance really grants us the authority to approve something else.
Oh, all right.
Tom?
When was that written?
Prior to my time here.
So I thought you were going to say. You know, some of this too, to me, just is common sense.
Right.
I can remember when Verona Road was 2 lanes. I can remember the businesses out there, you could see them real easy because you didn't have any walls. The city's changed. The state of Wisconsin changed the roadway. I don't think we're opening any box at all. I guess what I'm trying to say is these businesses are important to the city of Fitchburg along Verona Road, and they want to be seen. And how difficult is that? To me, it's pretty simple. You're going to say, well, if we grant this one, there'll be another one. I really like his comment. I think his comment was right on. It has to do with the grade. I mean, Verona Road coming through Fitchburg right now, we've never seen anything like this. I never thought in my 30 years in Fitchburg that I'd see trucks coming from Iowa and not have to stop and go under the road. And go over the road and cars can go under. Are you kidding me? Benjamin, me and you talk, we'd never think this would happen. Never. One, they wouldn't have the money. And two, the state of Wisconsin would fight it. But it's changed. It's really changed. And what do I think? For the better. For the better. But, you know, I guess I'm talking to planners up here saying, I think the pictures say a lot too. They really do. I think they tell a lot, tell a big story. It's not hard to help a business. It's really hard to be an obstruction for the business. Now, if we want to I guess, Sonia, are you saying rewrite the whole thing? But would that clarify for other businesses? Is that what you're saying that would come before us?
That's correct. It would clarify the situation, give us the proper authority to approve a height with the sign with a greater height, and then we would also be able to apply that evenly to other businesses.
Okay, now my question to you coming back is, what about the grade level?
We can.
Just that we were talking about, when you come up to, I have to think what's over there. You know, there's a hotel there, there's Jung's, there's Monkey Shine, there's other ones that would come, there's a lot of them along in there.
It sounds like the feedback from the Plan Commission might be to define the grade as the new elevation of the Verona Road as constructed.
Okay. That's, and use that for the height of the sign?
As the starting point for the base of the sign.
And let me see if I'm hearing you right. In changing it as far as the height goes, I'm not getting into 25 or 30, but changing it, just use that for the grade. And whatever we can clear the road to get it up for the businesses we'll use? Is that what?
I think that's up to the Plan Commission to decide. Based on what I'm hearing, it sounds like potentially defining the road as 0 and then allowing 25 feet above.
Is that what you're saying you find in most areas?
Yep, most areas, when they have this same situation, that's what they do. I still think of it as getting out of the ditch, but, and
No, that's, staff, that's fair. No, that's fair.
If we
understand what I'm saying.
Yeah.
I mean, it's important for these businesses. And I don't want to sit up here being an obstruction. I don't want to do that.
What'll happen?
I have Stephen first, and then I'll come back to you.
My concern is, if we did an exception for or a waiver for this one, and then came up with a updated ordinance next month, basically, we have set no precedent, correct? Because we'd be operating under a new ordinance or new language at that point.
I think there's some risk. I mean, I haven't had an opportunity to evaluate how the road elevation might change. And again, I don't think the ordinance gives the Plan Commission the authority, unless you're interpreting the language differently than I am, which you're welcome to do.
I'm curious, what would a month delay do to you two? If we do what Sonia wants and next time we just change the wording or define the wording, and then basically it would be a month from now for the next meeting that everything would be okay. What would that do to you guys?
well, the risk to me is just watching material costs. We've not bought anything for this until this is approved. We're not gonna spend Dale's money or our money based on, we know we can go forward with it. So we're kind of watching what happens, I hate to say it, with the tariffs and everything else, but that's a pretty small risk, I think, compared to Dale's, and that's his tenants and his business and what they see every day. So I'll let you speak to that.
Well, it's been a long road to get here, based upon, $50,000 I gotta come up to pay for this sign, and I want to support my tenants, so, this just started 6 months ago for me, maybe longer, Paul, maybe longer. So another month, it is what it is, but I like the exception and redoing the sign ordinance and moving on. Between now and next month, getting an applicant for a sign is probably going to be pretty unlikely. So from a practical standpoint, it probably won't happen, but I understand where you're coming from. I understand your job responsibilities, but I'd like to get this thing moving, you know, and it'll take 6 to 8 weeks to get that thing up. Well, I don't want to pay for a frost charge at some point in time. I'm not sure when some of those things are going to come in either, you know, so, 2 months, so 3 months from now, that sign could be put up. Well, so those are my concerns, keeping my tenants happy. And we still wind up in the same position that we may have today where it would have been approved possibly, but we're delayed 30 days. The result is basically the same, except I lost 30 days. So, you ask in my opinion, that's what you got.
The winter, freezing, but
I don't know if to Ed or Tom, one of you two, you can fight it out.
I can answer this question. Can we get it done in a month?
Yeah.
From the standpoint, staff?
Be happy to draft an
mean,
ordinance for next month's meeting.
That helps.
I was just going to say, I would really like to interpret the verbiage of the ordinance to say something that it doesn't, but I can't. So I think that that's what we should do, is, get it in next month and get the request in right on top of it and early in the agenda.
Put it first on the agenda for you.
So do we come back? Is that what I heard, or will it be an automatic?
Would staff be able to approve this then at this point, or would this still be an application for a waiver? Would we present ourselves all over again with you and book our evenings with you? What would you like to see?
I don't think it would be necessary for you to personally come back and attend the meeting if the plans are the same. So I'd be happy to present it on your behalf, and we can
Right.
follow the same procedure.
Appreciate that.
Unless you want to come hang out with us somewhere.
Sure, it's enjoyable.
I mean, is it even possible to approve something conditional upon a change in the ordinance that we're approving it based on?
So you want a conditional use?
Yeah. I don't know. I don't know if that's
You know what I was thinking too, is
possible.
let this one go by and then fix it so that they're not,
Well, then you fix it before it's.
I know. Well, that's what I would like to do. I'm just thinking they're basically facing a month delay that nobody else after them will, because they're the ones that found
Yeah.
We're
this
not
area.
allowed a second ideas, are we?
So, yeah, either way.
I agree. If there was room to interpret, I would have provided that recommendation to you as well, but I really would prefer to do it the clean way.
Yeah, I agree. And by the way, Tom, I remember when it was a flashing red light there at that intersection.
So would I be comfortable in assuming that when you change the ordinance, it'll be approved next month? So I can go ahead and spend some money now and get this rolling without losing a month? Because I don't want to risk that capital. Is that what I'm hearing? I'm willing to do it, but, because the month's important to me.
Right.
And if I'm confident that this will happen next month, then I'll just sign the check and move on and keep this thing going.
And we'd provide, what we typically do in that situation is we'd offer Dale a waiver or actually a signature of liability that if you guys say no, he's going to have to pay us for whatever investment we've had in building the sign to get it ready for this. So that's how we kind of pass that responsibility as a sign company on to him. If he says to go ahead and do it, even though I don't have the permit.
Either way, it costs me money.
And it will cost-
I'm willing to risk it.
It'll cost them
I'm
money.
willing to risk it if you folks think that you're basically going to do what we just talked about.
I don't think we can give you any guarantees, but I haven't heard anyone say they have a problem with it. So,
That's good enough for me.
And I agree, because
I don't- that's fine.
Sonia's going to make the recommendation, so we usually do what she says.
Yeah, I mean, the risk is yours, but I might suggest, for fabrication, I don't know the ins and outs of your business, but the height of this message area wasn't proposed to change. It was just the height of the pole. So if there's any sort of fabrication of different parts of the sign that you might feel more comfortable moving forward with, rather than the whole thing, just a suggestion.
Okay.
Well, we've got buzz saws. Sawzall.
all right, so it sounds like we want to move to postpone for a month. Someone wants to make that motion?
So moved.
Second.
All right, all in favor of postponing for 1 month, say aye.
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 And opposed, nay?
Nay.
All right, 1 nay. That is approved to postpone. And we won't see you next week, I guess, or next month, but
Fair
you're
enough.
welcome to.
Fair enough.
Come say
Appreciate the
hi.
invite.
Yeah, appreciate listening to us.
Thank you.
All right,
What
thank
what
you.
our concerns were this today.
Thank you.
All right, moving along to G, and this is probably a city thing, so do you want to speak to this, Sonia?
So this, on the screen, I'm showing a portion of the Nine Springs plat. It's just north of the Phoenix project currently under development along Lacey and near East Sherrill. So this is just a quick claim deed to dedicate what is currently Outlot 11 to the public for street purposes. For some reason, it was platted as an outlot for future development, although the intent was always to use it as an extension of Green Market Place. So that's all this does.
Any questions? So, any motions?
I move to approve Resolution 162-19.
Second.
All right, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay? All right, that is approved, and now to the latest on the comp plan. I don't know if that's you or Wade
So
or
Wade's here to run
both.
the show and kick off this presentation. I'll just bring it up for you, Wade.
You guys sick of me yet? Showing up. All right, so I want to talk a little bit about what we're calling a potential reframe of the comp plan update. So just real briefly, we'll talk about that. So I want to talk about why we're proposing this and then what the reframe entails. And just to clarify, you do have a 2-page memo in your packet that'll clarify a lot of what we're talking about tonight. So why a new frame? Well, I think at the core, we all understand that we have a very good plan. It's served us well for 10 years. It is voluminous. That's just a fancy way of saying there's a lot in there. That's hard to get through. And we're kind of going under the premise that bigger isn't always better. Similarly, much of the existing plan's policy language is abstract. So that kind of begs the question, how do we know if our plan is effective in achieving success? So given the aforementioned, we do feel at some level the plan, again, it's a good plan, but we feel like it's somewhat difficult for policymakers and staff and our residents to access and use. Kind of a third point is that a lot of planning work has been done in the past 5 years to support this comp plan. So how do we build on and not duplicate all that great planning work in this comp plan update? So that leads to this idea of what we're calling potentially a new frame. So really at the core, we as staff want to ensure that our plan is accessible, usable, effective, and builds on previous work, and also creates some level of interest and excitement for people to want to access and use that plan. So what is the new frame? Well, really it's about this idea of growing Fitchburg. And I think the word growing can take a lot of different connotations. As planners, we are under the impression that healthy communities grow, unhealthy communities don't grow. So growth can imply many different things. So it can be about maintaining and developing new housing, jobs, roads and parks. It can be about maintaining and enhancing delivery of services to our residents. And it can also be about kind of growing that relationship between city officials, staff, and our residents and businesses. So that kind of gives you this general concept of kind of the growing frame, but in terms of more content and how things are organized, really we're proposing going from, I think it's 13 chapters, 12 or 13 down to 4, without losing a lot of that real important content. So really at the core, it's about how, what, and where. Chapter 1 is how will Fitchburg grow? Chapter 2 talks more about kind of this what concept, about what we're calling pillars and tools. And then chapter 4 is kind of this idea of geographically where are we going to grow? And we'll talk more about each one of those proposed chapters. So how will Fitchburg grow? And this really kind of sets the framework for what will come in the subsequent chapters. It's really about identifying what we're calling growth principles. And really this means developing, maintaining, enhancing, and allocating resources under 4 kind of umbrella principles. Sustainability, equity, vibrancy, and kind of this idea of cooperation. So why these growth principles? Well, we feel they're all encompassing. They cover a lot of ground. There's some overlap between them. As planners, we think they're tenets of what we call good planning and good planning is very subjective, but we think those 4 principles really underpin good planning. And then if you look at a lot of our existing plans, our staffing allocations, our ordinances, our agreements, our facilities, our committees, our commissions, you'll probably, if you really dig into those, you'll see those 4 growth principles kind of weaving their way throughout all those existing plans and staffing allocations, committees, commissions, et cetera. So that moves in, that should be chapter 2. So this would be kind of what we're calling pillars of our growth. And really, we're kind of using this idea of live, work, and play. In the planning profession, we call it the 3 spaces. So your first space is where you live. Your second space is where you work or go to school. And your third place is where you play. So really, if you think about how that dovetails into our comp plan, it's about housing, it's about education and jobs, and it's about recreation. And I think if you think about our city and even your lives, you'll probably be able to fit every minute of your day into one of those 3 categories. So that takes us into chapter 3, and I'm using a lot of construction analogies here, but the idea is we're calling these tools, but these are really the things that we need to kind of pay attention to make sure that those growth pillars of live, work, and play are maintained. So you can think about this as tools or nuts and bolts, but really kind of the pieces that make sure that our live, work, and play elements are efficient and sustainable. And then probably most importantly to this body might be this idea of where we grow. And again, in this reframe, we're proposing what we're calling growth sectors, essentially 3 growth sectors, kind of playing on this field repetition. So green field, gray field, and farm field. And just kind of fleshing that out a little bit. When we talk green field, we're talking essentially new land development on the urban fringes. So think of things like Terra Vesta, Stoner Prairie. Gray field, you heard it tonight with Scott from Vanderwall. I'm really focusing on redevelopment and infill, and we're kind of framing that as a gray field concept. And the third piece is this idea of farm field. Now we're unique in terms of most cities don't have our farmland, our eggland base. We've got 11,000 acres. So how do we kind of encourage that sector of our city to grow as well? So really farm field means about supporting and enhancing the city's ag industry in our rural areas. So a lot of the chapters will follow kind of some of the same formatting, but I think the real meat of the chapters is what we're looking at on this slide. In chapter 1, again, we talked about those growth principles. The real meat of that chapter will be defining what those principles mean. And then in chapters 2, 3, and 4, I think really coming up with policy direction that supports and advances the growth principles and previous relevant planning work as we've just discussed. And of course, very important to chapter 4 will be that idea of a future land use map. And I think we want to frame that as kind of a policy or action item as well. So that is kind of a quick and dirty on a proposed reframe, I should say. And again, the real goal here is to be more efficient, more succinct, build on previous planning work, and create a plan that folks can access and want to access. So with that, I can certainly take any questions or comments.
All right, I have at least one citizen comment here, unless I don't have anything I'll think from anyone else, but if you want to speak, you can. This is from Jay Hockenmuth in Fitchburg. Sorry I can't be here tonight. Attached to this form, I'm handing out to the Plan Commission members are 10 copies of my comments. Time permits, please read into the record the comments in bold, so I'll read those quick. Thank you for the opportunity to comment on agenda item 5H. My name is Jay Hockenmuth. I lived in Fitchburg for 33 years. Michael Ejercito, Seminole Forest President, and Tom Thorson, Lacey Heights President, I reviewed and agree with these comments. The 9/12/19 staff memo for this item contains a very interesting proposal that warrants further consideration by the Commission and Council. Staff should be commended for bringing the reframe option forward at this point in the update process. To help determine if staff should be directed to condense the 13 chapters in the 2009 comp plan, which is 173 pages, into 4 chapters of 36 to 53 pages in the 2020 comp plan, please consider recommending to the Council that the 9/12/19 staff memo should be revised or addendum prepared to include the following information. More details about why it will be easier for the public and city officials to use a reframe plan and what the other pros and cons of a reframe plan are. Whether the comp plan update schedule and resolution R12219 adopted by the Council on 7/23/19 needs to be revised. If so, why and what are the details? in which reframe chapter will A, information in chapter 13 of the 2009 plan dealing with implementation be located, and B, recent implementation issues be addressed. Recent issues include, do the council and plan commission have to adopt the same wording for comp plan amendment? Whether an appendix with a crosswalk will be in the 2020 comp plan, the details will happen to each chapter section in the 2009 comp plan, and whether an appendix listing what's been deleted from the 2009 plan and why will be in the 2020 comp plan. Note, a crosswalk and an appendix for deletions will help the public understand why changes to the 2009 plan are needed and help foster public comment on those changes as per state statute. Thanks for considering these comments. All right, I don't have anything else from the public at this point, but looking for feedback, questions from Plan Commission. Steven.
What led to this reframe?
A lot of staff discussion, a lot of analysis of the existing plan, survey of other staff that may or may not be using this plan. I think just a general consensus of how can we improve on our first attempt at a comp plan.
I can add on that as well, just to provide sort of my personal thought process. Part of the conversation that we've had to date is talking about bringing in all of the planning efforts that we've done over the last 10 years, specifically, for example, the housing plan or the bicycle plan. And as you start putting pen to paper as staff, you're realizing that bringing in just by reference those plans just in words only maybe isn't effective. And two, it gets very repetitious. And so you're bringing in maybe a lot of extraneous and detailed policies that aren't necessary. And then the other thing besides the repetitious piece of that is that we started to realize that there were a lot of themes emerging that could maybe be more easily incorporated in some sort of narrative or outline of the plan rather than, again, just bringing in volumes of information. So it seemed like a natural evolution. Another thing that I like about taking this route is that it really provides an opportunity to further flesh out those themes as far as a vision for the community, and it says more visibly where we are in 2019 versus 2009, just building on all of those plans and really not changing any substantive information that the plan is based on today, such as the food of growth models.
Further questions, comments, things you like, don't like? Yeah, go ahead.
And I think in general, I agree with the idea of the reframing. I do have some concerns that in doing so, you may lose items. So obviously, I think that's important to make sure that we understand kind of, to Jay's point, what's being removed and kind of maybe the reasoning behind if there's anything being cut or if kind of the content behind it is changing in any way, shape, or form. I can't disagree. I've read the current comp plan, and it's very long and a lot of data, which I love, but it's still, to your point, not accessible, and it's not necessarily easy to understand. So I like the idea of making it more succinct.
And to that point, staff has already started that work of making sure all the substantive content remains, or at least is presented. So certainly we'll make sure that all that stuff is brought along in a new frame.
Rich?
I was impressed when I read this today, and I did read the other comp plan. It was huge. I do have one question or one thing in the back of my mind. A few months back, we had somebody coming and talking to us about Edgewood wanting to do something in here and build that in, and there was something about Oregon. Can you address that? I mean, how is that going to fit in with things when we have those kind of topics brought up?
So one of the things that we've talked about and I've kind of advocated is right now we don't allow major comp plan updates within that 10-year frame. And I think that we need to put something in place so we can do that. We also need some kind of guidelines on what is really okay, to do that. It can't just be someone just wants to do a project. There has to be some kind of structure on the ability, because we don't want to do it every year. We don't probably want to do it 4 times over the next 10 years. It might be once or twice. So I think we need to have that flexibility to do a major comp plan, and that's going to be, I don't know which chapter exactly. You might not know which chapter yet, but we also need some guidelines on, yeah, this makes sense, because what if, Exact Sciences says, oh, forget it, Madison, we want to build this huge campus in Fitchburg now, and you don't want to necessarily turn around really kind of epic, if you will, opportunities. And so, you like that one? You like that? Very proud. So you want to have something in place so that you don't have to just say no, but if something, does come, that's really a huge opportunity that you can take advantage of that.
How do you determine whether it's a huge enough opportunity that's that big a benefit to the city that we're going to reopen the comp plan within a 10-year period to do it?
I foresee that being a very long discussion, probably here on council.
Yeah, that's a discussion that concerns me quite a bit. And off the cuff, I don't think I'm in favor of that. I think we've got a couple of things that we may want to consider over this period of time that we're able to identify right now. And, I think the question is, how do we build that into the process? And I think that's a good question. Maybe that should be built into the process to at least somehow identify those two things as things that we may consider within that 10-year time frame as changes to the FUTA. And, the tool we've used in the past was a special study area. And if you refer it to that, there'd be some consistency with the prior plan, which uses that terminology. And you could also identify what the circumstances would be under which, we may consider these things. I mean, be a little bit specific about, there's a couple of areas that may be under consideration, but it's for these specific purposes, not for just any general purpose. But, if this particular purpose makes sense to city council at some point, that's something that could be brought into the FUTA. I mean, I'd rather see us identify these two projects as possible things that could come in, rather than to just leave the entire comp plan open up to willy-nilly revisions based, from changing councils.
Yeah, that's gonna be, well, that'll be all part of the discussion we have at some point is it just identify a couple projects? Is it, enabling any kind of project that might be at a certain level and what those guidelines and criteria are? I think that's a future thing. I think this is really trying to keep it focused on the framework and in some stuff here, because I think there's a lot of discussion and those are all valid points too. Other comments?
One other comment I had, and this is, maybe it's semantics or, I don't know. When we look at where will Fitchburg grow, Greenfield, Grayfield, Farmfield, do we want to put those into the plan in order of priority? I mean, if we were, I would think that Grayfield would be the priority. And
I don't think at staff we've gotten to that level of discussion, but that's certainly something that could be discussed by Plan Commission and council, yeah.
I'm not sure that it really matters that much, but I would put the thing that we're prioritizing first.
Yeah, and we are trying to get some public sentiment on that too in our surveying, so I think that'll be an interesting data point as well.
Okay, right, that may determine it.
Tom?
I think, just due to my schedule, Wayne, I couldn't make a couple of meetings. But I think we got to throw out a caution flag here too a little bit. I think the staff has done good work with what they've done. But just remember, and I think you'll agree with me, Wayne, this hasn't gone to the public yet.
Correct.
This has not gone to the public yet, so we don't want to get the cart before the horse. And number two, nowhere have I seen in this, and I brought this up before, we can talk about it again, it's the town of Madison. I think somewhere in here we have to, I don't even care if it's bold and to be discussed, because we don't know what's going, which I agree with you, but unless we're going to give it to the city and it's off our plate, but right now, as I'm speaking, correct me if I'm wrong, it's on our plate. The town of Madison is on our plate, and it's got to have a piece in here somewhere. That's just comments.
If I could just segue into a point that might address some of your concerns, and then we can jump back to framing. But we have set our public engagement framework. I think we were here last month and kind of talked about that process. So these meetings have been scheduled, 5 meetings in 5 different parts of the city, including town of Madison residents.
Now, let me interrupt you. That bus hasn't been driven yet.
Okay, sure. Yep. And I think as staff, we want to be precautionary and make sure we extend the invite, politics being what they are. But again, this is kind of the meeting schedule, at which we will discuss some level of the reframe if this body decides that's the direction they want to go.
Yeah, that's only a month away. I mean, how detailed can you be at that point?
Well, that's the timeline we were given, so we will do our best to be detailed within that timeline.
Further questions, comments? Okay. And I guess outside the meeting, I provided feedback to staff that I like the idea of cleaning this up and making it easier to find information. It's not such a huge document that it's really difficult to find information in. I think as we do further studies and updates to some of the things like a bike and ped plan, it's easier if we're referencing those documents versus trying to put these in here, because then you gotta go back and try and make sure that all the cross references are right. So I think it can help a lot as some of the other pieces that feed into this get updated as well, and other things might get added as well.
Just one point, then, I guess, in that if we're gonna be reducing the overall amount of the content, kind of to Ed's point, then that should by nature make it more flexible, I would expect. And that flexibility should then give us what we need to allow for these types of, instead of saying we can do up to 2 major amendments in a 10-year cycle or whatever we might do, instead make it more flexible for that as things come up, we're not as controlled as, I don't know if that's possible, but this should be a guiding document, not a letter to the law of exactly how we have to act as a plan commission.
In my opinion, it'll be a more succinct document. The level of rigidity is up to the final plan content.
Right, and just for the record and to be clear, this intent of staff was not to make this more flexible for changing our future urban development areas. That would be outside the scope of this project. This is substantive policy issues only related to areas currently included in the urban service area and future urban development areas.
All right. Anything else? Anything else from staff? Yeah.
So for public information, I just wanted to touch on the outreach effort a little bit further. These dates are posted on the city's website, fitchburgwi.gov/comp plan update. There's a new page that people can go and reference this. In addition, after September 23rd, we'll be sending out postcards. Wade and Mitch in the planning department have been spending a lot of time getting mailing lists together to every household for the city of Fitchburg as well as the town of Madison. So 5 unique postcards will be mailed to residents depending on which zone on this map that their meeting location is in. So it will give them information for that specific date and then also direct them to the website where they can, if they want to attend all of the meetings, they can. We do anticipate having Spanish translation services at least one of the meetings, and right now the concept is North Fish Hatchery Road, although that's subject to change. I think after September 23rd, I also wanted to note that the public survey will be available, and that will be posted online. That will be advertised on the postcard as well. The actual content and format of these meetings is evolving, but we do anticipate some sort of introduction by city staff, which would explain why we're holding these meetings, what a comprehensive plan is, what the process for the update is, provide some sort of background data and trends, and then move into breakout activities to gather input. So those might look like keypad polling, facilitated questions, a mapping exercise, or sort of individual open-ended question worksheets or flip charts. Those are just some examples of the breakout activities that could occur. And we are working with a consultant within the currently authorized budget to help support those outreach meetings. Vandewall and Associates is putting together some detail for us, and they do have access to, for example, the software for keypad polling activities. So that's just sort of a breakdown of where we are now. And then for the public, again, just to note, stay tuned after September 23rd for information coming in various emails on City of Fitchburg social media, on the website for that postcard mailer, for survey availability. Also note that Committee of the Whole at the end of this month, September 25th, will focus exclusively on the comprehensive plan. So right now, we're continuing to talk about framework and sort of the bigger picture pieces of the comprehensive plan. Our goal as staff is to immediately dive into some more substantive policy discussion. So one of the things that we're conceptualizing is, again, Lisa and other planning staff have done a lot of work in gathering up all of the goals, objectives, and policies from all of our planning documents. So we hope to present that to you in a format that is a little bit more streamlined, and you can actually view and comment and potentially suggest edits on those policies. So that's just one example of discussion that could be had on September 25th. Throughout the month of October, we'll have those 5 outreach meetings, and city committees will also be reviewing the same sort of high-level conceptual information when they meet during their regularly scheduled meetings. And a date is yet to be scheduled for mid-November, but we expect to have a citywide open house probably at City Hall.
All right. Anything further on comp plan? All right, then anything to report from department?
Just to note, October 15th, we will start at 6:30.
Yes.
That will be our new permanent start time.
Yep. All right. Then seeing nothing else, if someone wants to make a motion to adjourn, that'd be great.
So moved.
Second.
All right. All in favor of adjourning, say aye.
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 Aye. Any opposed, nay. All right, we are adjourned. Thank you, everyone.